hard truth nobody wants to admit. Working your ass off while obeying every rule is the surest way to stay broke and invisible. You're not winning. You're just grinding for someone else's dream. They sell you the fairy tale, work hard, obey, climb the ladder. But what if I told you that ladder's leaning against the wrong wall? The obedient always serve the winners. They never become them. Ask yourself, why do the richest people never play by the rules? Because rules are designed to keep you small, controlled, and replaceable. If you want to dominate, you must stop being a puppet and start owning your decisions, breaking free from the chains of obedience. Hard work is praised like it's the golden ticket to success. From the moment you're young, society drills into you that if you just put in enough hours, grind harder than the next guy, and obey the rules laid out by those in power, you'll get rewarded. But here's the dirty truth nobody wants to say out loud. Hard work alone, especially when it's mixed with blind obedience, doesn't make you a winner. In fact, it's often the opposite. It makes you the perfect worker bee in someone else's hive. The system loves hard workers who follow orders because they're reliable, predictable, and easy to control. They don't challenge anything. They just do what they're told, clock in and clock out, and keep the machine running. Hard work without questioning is like running on a treadmill. You're burning energy but staying in the same spot. The problem isn't the work itself. The problem is that you're working hard for someone else's vision, someone else's rules, someone else's success. When you obey without thinking, you hand over your power. You become a tool in the hands of people who are playing the game at a higher level, manipulating the rules to benefit themselves while you sweat in the trenches. Hard work only pays off when it's paired with strategy, creativity, and independence. Without those, it's just busy work that fills your time and keeps you too exhausted to think about breaking free. Look around you. How many people do you see grinding every day but stuck in the same place? They're working harder than ever but never breaking through. Why? Because they believe the myth that obedience equals progress. They accept whatever tasks they're given without asking if those tasks actually move them closer to their goals. They spend decades climbing ladders that lead nowhere, all because they're too scared to challenge the system or make their own path. Meanwhile, the real winners don't just work hard, they work smart, and they know when to break rules or ignore orders that don't serve their purpose. Obedience is comfortable, it's safe. When you obey, you don't have to think too much. You don't have to take responsibility for your own life or outcomes. You get to blame the system, your boss, or the economy when things don't work out. But that comfort is a trap. It's the cage that keeps you from becoming exceptional. The truth is, no one ever became a legend by following orders perfectly. The people you admire, the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the game changers, they all took risks, ignored norms, and worked in ways that made sense to them, not the system. Hard work should be about mastery and dominance over your own world, not about submission to a broken system. It's about pushing beyond what's expected, taking control and refusing to be a cog in a machine built to keep you small. When you blindly obey, you're just feeding the machine that profits off your sweat and sacrifices. You become a slave to someone else's dream. Real power comes from questioning every instruction, every expectation, and deciding for yourself what's worth your time and energy. In the end, hard work isn't the enemy, it's the obedience that usually comes with it. The real hustle is learning when to say no, when to break free, and when to carve your own path. If you want to win in life, stop worshiping hard work like it's some holy grail handed down by authority figures. Instead, focus on mastering yourself, thinking critically, and refusing to obey anything that doesn't serve your ultimate goal. Because if you don't, you'll be stuck working hard forever, but never truly winning. Following orders is the cornerstone of obedience, and it's often mistaken for discipline or professionalism. People think if they just do exactly what they're told, show up on time, and check off every box, they'll get ahead. The harsh reality? This mindset is the fastest route to staying stuck in mediocrity. When you follow orders without question, you're signing up to be average by design. You're giving away your power, creativity, and potential to anyone who hands you a task. And worse, you're training yourself to think small. Real success doesn't come from ticking off a list someone else made. It comes from breaking free of that list altogether and rewriting the rules. Think about it. When you follow orders, you're essentially playing by someone else's game, someone else's definition of success. The rules you're obeying weren't created to elevate you, they were created to keep the system running smoothly. And who benefits from a smoothly running system? Not the worker who just follows orders. They benefit the bosses, the owners, the top dogs who set those orders in the first place. They want compliant people who won't rock the boat, won't ask questions, and won't challenge the status quo. The moment you start to think for yourself or act outside the orders, you become a threat to that system, and that's when real growth begins. Formation conditions your mind to wait for permission, to rely on external validation, and to measure your worth by how well you serve others' goals. You become a prisoner of someone else's agenda, which means your growth is limited by their imagination and priorities, not your own. If you want to remain average, keep doing exactly what you're told. But if you want to win, if you want to dominate your field, you need to stop waiting for orders and start giving them to yourself first and eventually to others. Here's the kicker. Most people don't realize how much of their time and energy is wasted obeying pointless orders. They spend years doing things that don't move the needle for their own lives, stuck in jobs or situations where they have no real say. This obedient behavior is rewarded with job security, praise, and maybe a small raise, but it's a cage disguised as a paycheck. You might feel safe inside that cage, but you'll never be free. You'll never be the king or queen of your own empire. The fastest way to break this cycle is to develop independent thinking. Start questioning everything you're told. Don't just accept tasks because they come from a higher up. Ask yourself if those tasks help you build your future or just keep someone else's dream alive. Innovators, leaders, and top performers are not the ones waiting around for instructions. They are the ones creating instructions. They're the ones breaking the mold and pushing boundaries. They understand that real progress requires risk, creativity, and sometimes outright rebellion against the rules. Also, following orders dulls your ability to solve problems creatively. When you're trained to obey, you stop thinking for yourself. You become reactive instead of proactive, waiting for guidance instead of taking initiative. This is exactly the kind of mindset that holds people back in any industry. The world doesn't reward compliance. It rewards innovation, courage, and leadership. If you want to stand out, you have to develop a mindset that questions, experiments, and leads rather than follows. If you're serious about winning, understand this. The path of obedience leads to the same destination as everyone else, mediocrity. The only way to get ahead is to get off that path entirely. Start making your own calls. Start taking risks. Start owning your decisions and their consequences. This is how you build confidence, how you learn faster, and how you create real value that no one else can replicate. Following orders might be easy, but it's a trap disguised as a virtue. Don't fall for it. Winning requires you to be the one giving orders to yourself and to others, not the one obeying them. The moment you embrace that truth, you leave average behind for good. Real winners aren't the ones who follow the crowd or stick to the beaten path. They're the ones who break the rules, challenge the norms, and refuse to conform to what everyone else accepts as normal. The truth is, success doesn't come from obedience or fitting in. It comes from standing out, from thinking differently, and from having the guts to go against the grain when everyone else is too scared to. When you look at the most successful people in history, or the most dominant figures in any field, one thing they have in common is that they didn't win by following orders or playing by the existing rules. They rewrote those rules or created their own game entirely. Breaking rules doesn't mean being reckless or stupid. It means questioning the status quo and refusing to accept outdated or limiting ideas just because that's how it's always been done. Most people obey because they want to avoid risk, conflict, or failure. But real winners know that risk is the price of greatness. They don't wait for permission or for someone to hand them a blueprint for success. Instead, they take the initiative to invent their own path, even if it means making enemies or facing resistance. It's uncomfortable, it's hard, but that's exactly why it works. The world rewards those who push boundaries, not those who stay inside the lines. Think about industries that have been completely transformed by disruptive innovators. Tech, fashion, entertainment. Those game changers didn't get there by following the rules. They broke them, challenged assumptions, and created something new. They thought independently instead of simply obeying orders or mimicking what others did. This independent thinking is what separates winners from followers. When you rely on others to tell you what to do or how to do it, you limit your potential. You become a copy of someone else's success, not the original. Independent thinking also means being willing to stand alone. Real winners don't wait for a